What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to the main event of episode number 330 of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, and joining me on this edition, we've got Robert DeFelice.
Yo, yo.
Callum Wiggins.
Standing in the Hall of Fame.
Da, 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 da. I don't remember the rest of the lyrics. I like the song, though.
Yeah, it's a good song.
Doesn't it just like break down into like some kind of rap at some point or something?
Well, yeah, it's just William singing.
Hall of Fame, yeah. Standing or something, I don't know.
Rather listen to that than anything by Kid Rock, though.
Meanwhile, I've got that other version of the Hall of Fame theme stuck in my head where it's just that da 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 da, where it seems like somebody was like, hey, can you compose a Hall of Fame theme? And they're like, yeah, how should it go? Like, the Hall of Fame for the Hall of Fame.
The Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Hall of Fame theme. Just, I can't remember what the fuck we did for, we did some outro sometime based off of that. I don't know. If anybody knows, toss it in the comments. Peter.
Yeah, Peter.
Well, with us talking about the Hall of Fame here, and with the title and the description and the thumbnail and all the other kind of information you should know what we're talking about here, this is Wrestling with the Past, which we pretty much only do once a year at this point, and it's pretty much only for this edition. Sometimes we go back and we just do some other things, but hasn't been too much in a long time. It's usually been reserved for this, and essentially the reason why is because it is a retrospective, where we take whatever the topic is, we just talk about our thoughts about it, our memories of the different people involved, of the situation that went down, whatever it might be. And since this is going to be focusing on the class of 2018 for the WWE Hall of Fame inductees, we'll be breaking down all the people that have been announced so far, our thoughts on their careers, on the potential Hall of Fame stuff that we're looking forward to, so on and so forth like that. One thing to preface ahead of time, we're recording this in the middle of the afternoon on Wednesday the 28th of March, so we actually don't have all of the information of the Hall of Fame yet. They have yet to announce who is going to induct Hillbilly Jim, Kid Rock, or Mark Henry. And they have not announced a single person for the Legacy Award, if they're going to do that, which they did it the past 2 years, so I kind of assumed that they are going to do it again. But we don't know that information, so we're just going to speculate about that, and we might be wrong, we might be right. That's kind of what speculation means. But we do know some other information, and we're going to talk about the stuff we do know, what we don't know, blah, 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 blah. So, first things first, I want to just ask you guys, without getting into specifics, is this a good class?
No.
I mean, it could be worse. I think there's kind of 3 standouts to me, and then the rest are a bit like hit and miss.
Maybe it's because this class makes me feel very old, but these all seem way too fresh to be like, here's your Hall of Fame, guys.
Some of them do to me. Some of them don't necessarily. And I think we've had worse classes in the past, but we've had better ones. And when I look at this group, for the most part, I think everybody is justified. And that makes a better Hall of Fame class to me, more so than like if it has tons and tons and tons of star power. Because, I mean, when you have a Hall of Fame and you have like Bret Hart and Hulk Hogan and Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler or whatever, and it's like, you're taking a lot of people out right out of the gate, you know? So you do have some people that aren't quite as on par, but eventually, you know, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever the case may be, we'll have some other big names, like, you know, we never have The Rock in there yet, we haven't had Triple H in there, The Undertaker eventually go in, you know, there's certain people that'll be big, and they'll go in, but for this group, I don't think it's all that bad. I know some people have their issues with some particular people.
I'm sure we'll cover it.
Yeah. But the first thing I want to talk about is we don't know the Legacy Award. That is the... It sounds mean to say, but the most insignificant in a lot of ways. Because they built this Legacy Award thing specifically because they were like, all right, lots of people don't give a shit about the older people. We want to acknowledge them, but we can't give too much time dedicated to them. And to tell you the truth, I don't even remember who is in the Legacy Award Hall of Fame. Let's see. I know it's like people like Danny Hodge or something, and like.
Well, you keep going back to Danny Hodge. I think, pretty sure he did it. Maybe Judy Grable, I think.
Yeah, people like Hackenschmidt and stuff like that as well.
All right, we got Mildred Burke, Frank Gotch, George Hackenschmidt, Ed the Strangler Lewis, Pat O'Connor, Lou Thez. Lou Thez, I think, could have been somebody that they would have focused more time on.
Yeah, Lou Thez should be in the Hall of Fame itself, shouldn't he?
Well, all these people are in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
It's just they don't think that people know who they are, so they decide to just lump them all together instead of actually like devoting time to them. And also, most of them are dead, so they don't really want to bring up a load of dead people at once, really. Right.
And I know some of these names, and, you know, like if somebody says Haystacks Calhoun, who is he? I'm like, oh, yeah, WWE wrestler. Or Judy Grable. Yeah, you know, she used to be in WWE, that kind of thing. But, like, Joseph Toots Mont, I had no idea who the hell that guy was when they were announcing him. I
know who Toots Mont is, but I was gonna get on my high horse about people at least needing to know who Lou Thez is, but, you know, maybe not everybody is as dedicated to researching shit as I am, so, I don't know, I guess it's good for what it is.
I think this is a case of, like, WWE trying to add legitimacy to their Hall of Fame, because the Hall of Fame has come under a lot of scrutiny in the past.
Because Drew Carey?
Well, any celebrity, but also probably, the obvious one is to go to the Coco Bewares and stuff like that. So this is a way of them adding people that are in like other legitimate Hall of Fames for professional wrestling without having to bore people by going through it because they don't think people care about real wrestling history.
Real quick side note here, I just noticed on this thing, Mildred Burke's real name was Mildred Bliss. Doesn't Mildred Bliss sound more like a gimmick name than Mildred Burke?
Yeah.
That's weird. Yeah, like, you know, if you talk about Frank Gotch, it's like, people, if they have been familiar with wrestling long enough, they've heard the name Frank Gotch. But I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of kids that want to tune in to hear some story about Frank Gotch. And was it last year or was it the year before where Stan Hansen was in? And
it was the year before.
He struck me as exactly the type of person that most people aren't going to really necessarily care about watching. And I don't have anything against Stan Hansen. Like, you know, I never followed his career.
His eye out, man. Come on.
Yeah, like, you know, if you did something back in the day, then you did something back in the day. But he's not somebody I'm intrinsically tied to. And when he starts just going, you gotta have an opponent, and I'm like, oh god, can we just bring on somebody else at this point? Like, so I get that the Legacy Award's just kind of one of those throwaway things. And I kind of assume at this point that if they don't just ignore it this year, it's going to be 5 to 7 names or something that are going to be like, this guy was really popular in the AWA in 1971 to 1974. And I'll be like, all right, never heard of him.
Is Kurt Hennig's dad in the Hall of Fame?
I think Larry the Axe?
Larry the Axe Hennig, yeah. I think he might be. But I think Larry, it's also along...
He might be in the Legacy Award. That sounds like a good candidate for the Legacy Award.
No, he is not in the Hall of Fame.
I think you also have to take into consideration the fact that a lot of these people were dead, and they also were wrestling at a time when a lot of people nowadays weren't even wrestling, or actually more fans as opposed to, like, would have associated with these people. So there's not really much they could say about, oh, I remember this story about whoever, because people that could tell those stories are also dead or infirmed. So they can't really...
I'm going to ask this question. Should the Hall of Fame be an open event to the public, or should it be just a banquet for the wrestlers so that things like this aren't swept under the rug? Like,
all right, that brings up a good topic here, because I am of the opinion it should be something that the fans can participate in, but the fans are really making it hard to stick to that opinion.
Yeah, I turned against that idea when Bret Hart's speech from, like, when he went in, I think it was about 2006 or something like that, and they were constantly heckling him throughout it, and you could just tell how uncomfortable he was. Like,
what were they? I missed that one completely. What were they saying to Bret?
It was just like a load of people shouting over him while he was trying to do his speech, and obviously it was uncomfortable for him because this was his first time back in WWE since the screw job, so he was kind of ambivalent about being there in the first place, so didn't just a load of fans shouting all over him. So it just makes it uncomfortable. Like, I think the fans can be in there, but I think they need to be a lot more respectful, given a lot more, like, like it's only for certain fans that we know are going to be respectful about it.
I don't think the fans should be allowed, because as we've seen in the regular shows, the people that go to these shows are all about hijacking. They want to be the center of attention. And I don't think the Hall of Fame is the time for that.
No.
So I don't think the fans should be allowed. I think it should be a televised banquet or broadcast on the network. And
it does lead to some good moments, though. And that's one of the reasons why this time around I went ahead and I did a piggyback off of that thing that I did at the Royal Rumble. For people that are interested, I did the Royal Rumble drinking game. Well, we have a WWE Hall of Fame drinking game now, too. And it covers everything from when the crowd chants EC Dub, which they're going to do so much when Paul Heyman is out and when the Dudley Boyz are out. When they do the woos, when they, like, if they boo, for instance, like when Trish Stratus was like, you know, I want to thank my husband, and they're like, boo. I thought that was fucking great. But it is a weird thing, because the Hall of Fame is, like, 50% legitimate and something that people should be like, this is the best night of my career, and it's a real honor, and 50% show. And yeah. I understand when they go back and forth and they say that it's more show than it is anything else, and then that makes me a little bit more lenient on things like the Legacy Award and the Celebrity Wing and the Warrior Award and stuff. But kind of finishing our discussion on the Legacy Award thing here, there aren't any people inducted into the Hall of Fame this year who have passed away. And that's weird, because normally there is at least one. There is still one more week that they could potentially add somebody into the mix. I don't think that's going to be the case, though. And the rumor that had been going around more than anything was Bam Bam Bigelow. I think the rumor was true, but I think that they decided against it because next year is going to be in New York, New Jersey, the way that they bill it. It's technically New Jersey, I think, but
WrestleMania is in Jersey. The weekend itself will be spread out. Like, the Hall of Fame will be in the Garden. NXT will do Brooklyn that weekend. By the way, that's going to be fucking crazy.
That's going to be NXT Brooklyn, NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 6, I think, at that point, or 5 or 6. Which is like, that's crazy. But Bam Bam Bigelow was a New Jersey native, so I think that they're going to hold him back for next year.
Where the fuck is Bulldog, by the way? I know we're going to, get into who's actually being inducted, but where's Bulldog?
You get into a lot of contention when you talk about, like, people that, like, dead relatives in the Hart family, unfortunately.
I'm still waiting for a group inductee. I think that we're going to get the Hart Foundation, and it's going to be...
I thought that Stu Hart was supposed to be the, hey, here's your Benoit and your Bulldog and your Owen, because we can't induct them, but we'll induct the guy who trained them, so there you go.
Well, Benoit's never going in.
Yeah, exactly.
Never. But I do think that we're going to get Jim Neidhart accepting on behalf of himself, Owen Hart, and the British Bulldog. And either Natty or Brett doing the induction. I'm pretty sure that that's happening. It might not happen next year. It might not happen until, 5 years from now or something like that. But I think that that's happening. That's out of all the ones, that's one of the ones that's for sure just like, why hasn't this happened yet? And there's other ones. I mean, we've gone through this before where it's like, why hasn't Sable gone in yet? Are they going to induct China? Go back in previous editions, we've talked about it. But we've got this whole Legacy Award thing. I'm assuming it's either going to be something we're going to just announce it on the spot, or it'll just kind of be like, we don't have it this year. One of the things that's always controversial is the Warrior Award. And it's controversial not because it's like a bad idea to give some spotlight to some people, but, if you have the WWE Hall of Fame and Eric LeGrand is in there, and he basically goes, yeah, I used to play SmackDown versus Raw a lot.
Yeah.
It's a little bit strange. And I don't even remember who was the one woman?
Joan London.
Joan London, yeah. Connor the Crusher made sense to me. And
made it cry.
I like that Jarrius Robertson, JJ, I like that he's going in this year. And this is very weird for me to say, because there's a running gag for the past bunch of years where every Smark Out Moment Awards, I tended to give some kind of a worst award to a kid. I like this kid. He's funny. He's witty. He's, got some charm to him and stuff. He actually is one of the speeches that I'm looking forward to the most, which is strange. Like, if you would have told me a year ago, like, hey, next year you're going to be looking forward to that little kid JJ more so than anybody else, I would have been like, nah, it can't be true. But it is.
He's overcome a lot of adversity in his life. Like, he's gone through 2 liver transplants, so many operations and stuff like that, but he manages to keep a good sense of humour. It's quite clear that he's a WWE fan as well as like a lot of other sports fans as well, so you're not going to have a bit of a disconnect where with certain other people that might be going in for the Warrior Award, they're just going in because it's a good PR stunt. This time you get someone who is a legitimate fan, you get them to like join into the experience, they get to have a bit of fun. WWE gets to continue their PR quest as well, so it's really a win-win for everybody in this situation.
Yeah, there's really nothing negative about it, and that brings me to a different topic when it comes to that. People in the crowd, don't boo this kid. Please don't boo the kid. He has gone through a lot of shit, and if we get the whole, like, you know, the kid comes up there and he's all like, this is great, like, I can't believe I'm actually going into the Hall of Fame, and if people start going, you can't wrestle, it's like, oh, Christ, you know? Like, I hope that's not going to be a problem. And
it'd be worse, like saying, you can't process complex enzymes, stuff like that.
Okay, I actually kind of want them to do that one.
Add that to the drinking game.
Yeah. But add it for like multiple years. So it's like anytime that anybody ever chants, you can't process complex enzymes. And
entire drinks cabinet.
It'll be applicable to different people in the future, you know. You never know what's happening with like Vader nowadays and stuff. Is that a low blow? He just got out of surgery.
He's fine. He's living at the moment, so I think we'll take it.
We'll get into the Hall of Fame at some point. I like Vader. But the Jarrius thing, I like that that they're giving that award to that kid this year. It would have been bothersome to me if it would have been another Joan London or Eric LeGrand or something like that. I don't know. I have a little bit of a soft spot when it comes to if you give the award to a kid more than an adult, I guess. Kind of like a 50-50 shot.
Yeah, I think the kids are more likely to be like actual fans of the product at the time and stuff like that. And you could just tell with the other two that they had no association with WWE other than what they're doing now. So, so it just feels a bit more like natural with this one.
I don't think Joan London had like any idea what anything meant.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think Jarrius' one will be a lot more like entertaining and a bit more of a feel-good moment.
Well, I think that's where you get right back into if the fans fuck and boo this fucking kid, I'm gonna be so mad. He's just a little kid. Let him have his moment. Don't heckle him. You know, can we do that? Wrestling fans, can we not be piece of shit? Like,
you know, there's gonna be one dude that tries to get a boo or something going.
Yeah. No, if they want to boo Warrior, I'm more than happy with them doing that. They can do that.
Fuck Warrior. They can boo Warrior all they want.
Now, if you want to talk about how I'm interested in Jarrius' speech, I'm not interested in Dana Warrior's. Dana Warrior has this type of voice that kind of bugs me, where she does her speech and it's just kind of like, and I thought it was important to talk about, and it's like, can I just fast forward this? That kind of thing.
The weirdest thing to me is that the wrestling industry shit on the Ultimate Warrior for like changing his name to the Warrior and shit. And here's his wife and his kids. They're like Dana and Jamie Warrior and shit. Like, they bought into it as much as the Ultimate Warrior did, so,
the warrior spirit is living on.
Yeah.
It's a great award. I couldn't care less for the execution. You know.
What if they gave it to the executioner?
Which one?
Well, the third weird award that we have is the Celebrity Wing, and this year it's going to go to Kid Rock. And we don't know. Yeah, it's a good transition there. We don't know who's going to induct him yet. So that's something to bring up. Who do you guys think is going to actually induct Kid Rock? Because I can't think of a damn person that would make sense.
I liked Robert's idea of just getting every single woman that was at the WrestleMania 25 Battle Royal and getting them to dance awkwardly as he walks up to the podium.
Who can induct him? What are they gonna have John Cena do it? Because they get John to do these weird inductions a lot. Like he inducted William Perry, who was like a football player a few years back. They always get John to do some type of induction. Maybe it's John.
I mean, you obviously can't get The Undertaker to do it, even though he sang his theme music. Well,
or can you?
Unless he comes out in like the next episode of Raw and he's Mark Calloway instead. But I still think it's unlikely that I don't think Undertaker should be on stage at Hall of Fame until he's actually going in. But then the other person that I could potentially see, just because they won the WrestleMania 25 Battle Royal, get Santino Marella to do it.
The only person that comes to my mind, and there's no real...
Wait, he's Slater.
Well, I wasn't thinking Slater, but I was thinking a different person involved in music. Maybe Chris Jericho?
No, I think he's Slater inducts Kid Rock. Why the fuck not?
I don't like the idea that Kid Rock can potentially take up a lot of time in both the Hall of Fame and WrestleMania this year, but I'm okay with him going into the Hall of Fame. I think that he's done enough. The celebrity wing is something where if you do a little bit, it's enough.
Listen, if Drew carries the benchmark and he appeared on one show and knew absolutely nothing about professional wrestling, then really there's no limits to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I only know Kid Rock in wrestling for three things. One, the awful abomination of 15 minutes that he took from my life during WrestleMania 25. The fact that he sung Undertaker's theme song. And then he also did the theme music for Backlash 2008 with All Summer Long, even though Backlash was in fucking April.
He's done a lot for the Tribute to the Troops, and he did the theme song for the 2002 Rumble.
Oh.
So, I think it's well deserved. I just don't see who can induct him. I would say Edge and Christian, because they fucked with him one time on Raw, but they're inducting the Dudleys, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. You guys have anything more to say about Kid Rock, or should we just move on to those?
Not at all.
Yeah, let's leave him.
Yeah. The Dudley Boyz, as just mentioned a second ago, will be inducted by Edge and Christian, which makes a lot of sense to me considering Paul Heyman is already inducting somebody else, and I would have thought that he would have been one of the go-tos for the Dudley Boyz, but actually Edge and Christian makes a little bit more sense to me now that I've had a little bit of time to process it. They are two of the four people that they feuded with the most, the other two being the Hardy Boys. And you can't really have, the Dudley Boyz inducted by Edge and Christian and Jeff and Matt. That's four people inducting them. It would be kind of crazy. Dudley Boyz, though, 100% deserving. They are perhaps the most prolific tag team in all of professional wrestling history. I'm looking at their list right now. 1 WWE Tag Team Championship, 8 WWF or World Tag Team Championships, 1 WCW World Tag Team Championship in WWE, 2, Bully Ray has that, never mind. They have 2 World Tag Team Championships in TNA, 1 NWA 1. They have won the ECW tag titles 8 times, IWGP twice. I don't even know what some of these are. The Hustle Super Tag Team Championship 1 time. 1 time 2CW Tag Team Champion. How many friggin' titles do they have before you just go, all right, you're in Hall of Fame? Finally, it's happening this year.
Which is why I thought it was weird when we were doing the mailbag, and Peyton said that he thinks the Dudley Boyz could be some of the biggest examples of a Coco Beware induction, and I'm the Dudley Boyz are maybe the last tag team that are worth going into the Hall of Fame.
I think there's definitely more that can be brought in.
The Hardys aren't in yet.
Well, I meant on a WWE level, I would induct plenty of tag teams, the Midnight Express, a lot of teams from eras gone by, but there's not too many WWE Foundation tag teams that are left.
I think the Dudley Boyz just to go on that sort of lines, they play a key role in the revival of tag team wrestling in the late 90s, early 2000s, because there was a time in tag team wrestling in WWE where you had teams like Disciples of Apocalypse and
Los Boricuas,
Men on a Mission,
the Oddities,
the Smoking Guns.
I like the Smoking Guns.
Smoking Guns are great.
The Body Donners, stuff like
also
that.
Also a good tag team, but I get what you're saying.
It was just a time where tag team wrestling was kind of in the doldrums, and the only time that people really cared about tag team championships is when you threw two main eventers together and they won championships instead. So this was a time where tag team wrestling, the tag teams became stars again. So you had the Dudleys and the Hardys and Edge and Christian, and they were like focal parts. They weren't obviously in the main event, but they were like big deals at this point in time. And their matches were stealing the shows on cards that were featuring like a lot higher branded talent, but they were the matches that people were talking about afterwards because they were so good.
Yeah, and I like the idea that Edge and Christian are doing the induction. I think that they're going to be fun, and they're probably going to be the most fun out of all the people that are doing an induction, I think. Paul Heyman can be fun, and Road Dogg is potentially going to have fun too. But Edge and Christian are going to do something, I think, that'll be pretty interesting. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm not looking forward to the crowd in that segment necessarily.
Maybe not.
Wait, hold on. Can either Edge or Christian take a bump through a table?
No, I don't think at this point.
Well, Christian can take a bump, right? Like, he doesn't have to... I'm not saying you have to, fall hard. Just take a ginger 3D, as long as the table breaks.
I think that they need to just bring out Spike.
We could always dig Mae Young up. I was going to say with the...
okay, but if you're going to do that, she needs to win the Fallopian Tubes trophy at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
So.
I was going to say with the Dudley Boyz as well. I mean, it's obviously all well and good to talk about them as like a tag team unit. They've also had a lot of success on their own. I mean, mainly Bubba. I mean, Bully Ray is a multiple-time TNA World Champion. He's obviously did well on Ring of Honor as well and stuff like that. And Devon was a reverend at one point, so that's cool. So it's you can't just they're obviously going in as a tag team because they've had the most success as a partnership, but they also have had a lot of single success as well, which adds to their own legacy.
Now, this one, I don't think we're going to have too much to talk about. But I think that it's good that he's in there. Actually, no, I was going to go with Hillbilly Jim.
Oh.
Hillbilly Jim didn't accomplish all that much in WWE, but he was one of those guys in an era where you didn't have a chance to really accomplish too much. They had the world title, which basically stayed around one person for like 8 years at a time. They had the Intercontinental title, which went back and forth here and there and stuff, but it was either that or the tag title, and you weren't going to get that world title because that was Hulk Hogan. He was the guy that had that around that time. We talked about this a little bit last night on the hot tags. We talked about this before in general and all that. But really, really quickly, because I want to get Callum's opinion on this. Should Hulk Hogan induct Hillbilly Jim? Because we don't know who's inducting him yet.
I guess. I legitimately don't know anybody else that could.
I think they're going to chicken out and go with Jimmy Hart. I was thinking about it. I think Jimmy Hart will do it.
There's a lot of choices. I mean, if they can get Hulk Hogan, I think enough people would just actually be excited about Hulk Hogan more than just shitting all over him for the stuff that was said a few years ago. It's been 2-3 years at this point. I think they can get over it now and just enjoy the fact that Hogan would be inducting him.
Do you guys have any kind of memories about Hillbilly Jim? Because he's a little bit past even my time, and I'm the oldest one.
Legitimate.
Go ahead, Cal.
I was gonna say legitimately. I kind of feel like the song, Country Boy song, is probably should be going in the Hall of Fame instead of him because it's probably more memorable than he was. The only thing that I remember him for, other than that, was the fact that he was the manager of the Godwins.
That's mostly what I remember him from.
Me too.
And he was cool. I liked him as a manager. He was fun.
A mouthpiece for two people that clearly couldn't talk or wrestle even. But
Yeah. So I like Hillbilly Jim going in. He's not one of those ones where I could do some kind of wrestling history lesson of like, these great matches that he's ever had. I don't really know, but he was in a different era, and I think that he deserves to get a little bit of credit. I think he was the only one in the Legends house that wasn't in the Hall of Fame, and that felt a little bit strange.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good that he's going in.
Yeah.
Ivory, though, that is somebody who I know some other people have had some issues saying that she shouldn't go in. I also agree she should be going into the Hall of Fame. I think that she did enough, basically, but I think that there are plenty of people that could have gone in before her. And one of the people being Molly Holly, who's going to be inducting her. I think Molly Holly kind of did a little bit more than Ivory.
Molly Holly is inducting Ivory. Really, that's strange to me. I don't know why.
I think the issue with Ivory, I'm not saying that she doesn't deserve to go in, because I think that based on her accomplishments, like she's a multiple-time women's champion, and she did a lot of work with Glow, and she also did stuff with like training and behind-the-scenes stuff with WWE, so definitely a worthy inductee. It's just the fact that WWE's, with its women's like evolution, they've kind of henpecked the people that can go into the Hall of Fame as people that were quote-unquote wrestlers for the women's division at a time where, well, I wouldn't say most of WWE's time, but a lot of the time where Ivory was wrestling, WWE was focused on models as opposed to wrestlers, or people like Trish and Lita that kind of transcended and could do both roles. Ivory was more, definitely not a bad-looking woman by any stretch of imagination, but she was someone who could be on the wrestler side, whereas more memorable women during the Attitude Era, sort of like the likes of Sable, Chyna, Deborah,
Stacy Keibler,
Tori Wilson.
Yeah, those two need to go in.
But it's the idea, can they actually go in? Because...
Well, what do you celebrate Tori Wilson for? That
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, what are their accomplishments, essentially? You can't say, oh, this woman was, like, really, like, the fans loved him and stuff like that.
Stacy Keibler, that's another thing Kid Rock did. He did her theme song.
Oh, I thought
you were going to say he did her. Yeah, I was going to say, props to Kid Rock there.
Yeah. Well, George Clooney did her.
Yeah, well, that's George Clooney.
I mean, there's only certain things, like, I don't know, obviously, you know how Ivory came into WWE in the first place. She's actually linked to, obviously, another person that's going in, Mark Henry. She was brought in, essentially, to make sure that Mark Henry wasn't distracted in matches that involved Deborah. So she was essentially a sex object for Mark Henry. When he was the sexual chocolate gimmick.
Really? I don't remember that, but I was pretty young. So
I mean, they won't bring that up in the actual Hall of Fame thing, because that's not really a good note to start on.
It'd be great if Mark Henry does he's like the one that comes out afterward. Yeah, and he's just kind of like,
Well, I think like Ivory really came to her own during the Right Censor stuff. I think she was a really strong character at that point.
Yeah, and that's going to be something that they should definitely focus on as being something that she had fun with, and something different too. I mean, women weren't necessarily doing stuff like that.
She was the real kind of legitimate character out of all, because all the rest of them were like jokes in terms of like their actual wrestling ability and stuff like that, because they were all just either people that were washed up or people that nobody really cared about. And she was the one that could be like the legitimate person in the rope, in between the ropes, and like actually win major championships, whereas all the other ones.
Richards, if you're listening, I care about you, Stevie.
Yeah, but he was never going to win a title that wasn't the hardcore title, was he? So Ivory was the biggest deal out of all of them. And that's good.
You mentioned the idea of her being involved with Mark Henry. Mark Henry, I think, 100% deserving to go in here, and somebody who is criminally underrated in a lot of different ways. He, for those who need a rundown of his championships and stuff, I mean, you can obviously click on Wikipedia to check out the different things that he's done outside of WWE with, I don't have any context of that kind of stuff, but there was a time frame where Mark Henry wasn't becoming one of those guys that seemed like a Hall of Fame necessarily career. He had won the European title, and that was it. And it was like, all right, well, I guess that's all he's going to do. Then he goes and he wins the ECW title, and it's like, maybe that's the high point of his career. Thankfully, though, he does the Hall of Pain gimmick, and he wins that World Heavyweight Championship. And I fucking loved that. I thought that was great. I am very, very happy that Mark Henry's going in. I always thought that he was one of those guys that people crapped on too much. A lot of people are always like, I can't wait for him to retire. And I'm like, what's wrong with Mark Henry? Like, he's not going to put on a match like Shawn Michaels, but he's not supposed to. He's Mark Henry. He's the world's strongest man. He's not doing flippy shit, We don't know who's going to induct him yet. Very curious what that's going to be. Because that could be...
My guess is going to be the Godfather.
Could be Godfather. Could be D'Lo. Could be John Cena.
I think it should be Cena. Because if Mark's coming out in a salmon suit, then Cena should be there.
It could be. I mean, it could be so many people because he has a lot of friends backstage. It could be Big Show. He's really good friends with Big Show. I don't know, but I really, really like that Mark Henry's going in.
I do too. I think my issue with Henry is I feel like that Hall of Pain stuff, it's still pretty fresh to me. That it's just like, wow, he's already, calling it a career. I thought he hit his stride so late that it's sad that, he didn't get a lot of time on top.
I think Mark Henry was somebody who was so close to being just a completely failed experiment. I mean, he was brought in 96, I think he was, fresh off the Olympics. And essentially, because he flopped so hard at the start of his career, they were just giving him, the sexual chocolate gimmicks and all this other stuff where he touched up transsexuals and stuff along those lines, where they were just actively trying to force him out of the company, almost.
Well, hold on a second. We can say that now in retrospect. Oh, wow, that's terrible. That was super over in 99 and 2000.
Well, everything was over in 99 or 2000, but it's the idea of, the reason why they did that sort of stuff, and I think it's been well attested to by a lot of people talk about, is the fact that he was given a 20-year contract. Was it not 20 year? 10-year contract as soon as he joined, and then he flopped, and they were trying to get him out of his contract. That's why they gave him those gimmicks, because they wanted him to quit, and he wouldn't quit.
And he made it work.
Yeah, and he made a lot of money out of it, so good on him for that. Then they started to take him a little bit more seriously with the World's Strongest Man thing after he went, was it the Arnold Classic? He won that?
Yeah, I think so.
2002.
Yeah. So that was a kind of a resurgence in his career. And then he wins the ECW Championship. You think, yeah, that's a good accomplishment, but he's never still taken as a really big, serious deal. The Hall of Pain stuff is where he flourished, and not just so much in the ring, because obviously he was a commanding force in the ring still, but on the microphone, he hit his stride in a way that we probably had never seen before. And obviously, when you talk about Mark Henry on the microphone, you also have to bring up the retirement speech. Retirement speech.
That was so fucking amazing.
It's one of the most memorable moments can take in Raw history, let alone just in his career. That is something that everybody bought it, hook, line, and sinker, that he retired. And that one switch was just it takes a lot for wrestling fans to be shocked and actually taken out of, actually be hit into the story, rather than just oh, this is just a work, he's not actually retiring type thing. But the way they did it, the way that he did it was so good, so genuine. The turn was just impeccable as well. You almost wanted him to win the WWE Championship off the back of that.
Oh, I did. I mean, I was like, oh shit, don't tell me that Mark Henry's going to retire, because we had already had, I think, Edge and one or two other people around that time, and I was like, fuck, that sucks. He had a long enough career, all right, it's one of those things. And he's cutting the promo, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's something to it, and I'm like, all right, we're getting to the end of this promo, and nothing is happening yet. And John Cena's coming out, and I'm like, oh, fuck, this is real. And I started to get, a little emotional. I was sitting there thinking to myself, wow, all right, well, I'm glad that Mark Henry's getting the positive reception from the crowd, and they're not, crapping all over this and saying, you can't wrestle and whatever. And, oh my god, he fucking went out. And I'm like, oh, what the hell's happening here? I love that, and I hope to all hell that he comes out with this speech and he's got that salmon suit on.
Yes.
He has to.
Yeah.
And he has to end it with just I got a lot left in the tank kind of thing.
Well, I think he's going to end it with, that's what I do.
Yeah, that's on too. I love that one.
Yeah. I hope they don't like bring him out to the Sexual Chocolate theme song instead, because you can only take so much ribbing.
All right, well, you know what? That's going to be...
do it even for, like, 10 seconds.
They should. They have to at least acknowledge it at some point.
Yeah.
That's a good transition, though, if you're talking about themes to come out, too. Jeff Jarrett is going to be inducted by the Road Dogg, Jesse James. The real Jeff Jarrett. The roadie himself.
Ugh.
Does he come out to...
He's coming out to With My Baby Tonight. They played it on Raw, for God's sake.
Well, does he come out to that, or does he come out to do that kind of generic theme?
No, I think he's coming out to With My Baby Tonight, and I think Road Dogg is going to sing him out.
I'd like that. Why not?
I think at this point, Jarrett's going to come out to whatever WWE wants him to, because he's kind of probably so grateful to be brought back into the fold almost after being excommunicated for so long.
Well, I know that Peyton is not supportive of Jeff Jarrett going in, but I'm actually, for the most part, a fan of Jeff Jarrett. I liked Jeff Jarrett back in the day.
Jeff Jarrett. I'm one of very few, I think, in 2018. But growing up, my first exposure to wrestling really was tapes of 1995.
Yeah.
And Jeff was one of the few guys who could actually wrestle.
He was one of those staple people for the mid card, the upper mid card. You know, they gave him the Intercontinental Championship 6 times for a reason. He was also a European champion, won the tag team title with Owen Hart one time. I liked their pairing. In WWE, he was also the NWA North American champion. Of course, he went over to WCW, and that's where a lot of the criticism comes from post-WWE career stuff. 4-time world champion in WCW, 3-time United States champion. He goes over to TNA, creates that whole thing, and then we're not going to touch on that in WWE, I'm sure, but you got a lot of problems when it comes to TNA and Global Force and Impact and everything from...
I'm sure they'll touch on something. I mean, Jeff Jarrett did help AJ Styles find himself. He helped Samoa Joe. He helped a lot of people. So you got to touch on it somewhat.
I kind of assume it'll just be something as simple as I had my time in WWF. I had my time in WCW. I moved on. I worked on some other projects. I was really proud to be able to work with people like AJ Styles and Bobby Roode and Samoa Joe, and just kind of one of those things, and not be hey, remember Dixie Carter and I? That kind of a thing.
Here's I'm going to place a slight Payton role in this situation when talking about Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett was a good mid-carder in WWE, and that's all he ever should have been in WWE. Fine holding the Intercontinental Championship. I think 6 times is too much, because I think the last 3 that he held, he basically held those in space for about 4 months, because that was the time where they were just swapping titles willy-nilly. So it was just it's kind of inflated the number of reigns that he has. In WCW, he was protected by the fact that Vince Russo was one of the few people that Vince Russo liked. They kept putting the title on him. In TNA, he obviously owned the company, so he could put the title on it as many times as he wanted. Of course, it does give a platform to people like AJ Styles and Samoa Joe, but he also kept those people under while he kept holding the championship, or he gave the championship to people that had come over from WWE. I mean, it's still under his leadership that people...
But that was all business.
Well, yeah, but it's his business. So it's kind of if he wanted to build the promotion around those people, he would have built the promotion around those people, but he kept bringing in your Booker T's, your Kurt Angles, your Christians, your stuff like that. He kept bringing those people over. That's fine for a few people, but he was essentially creating an environment where TNA became the next WCW, and not the good WCW, the bad WCW. And then
Slapnuts sucked.
Yeah. And Global Force is obviously
a big people Slapnuts just because it's so ridiculous. But Jeff Jarrett was never going to be Triple H, and he was never going to be Stone Cold. And maybe he tried to be. Maybe he thought he should have been. But Jeff Jarrett is, he's still really good for who he was. And I don't know. I think Jeff kind of gets the shit end of the stick in 2018.
Well, the other thing, I'm saying that he was really good. I'm not going to take anything away from his in-ring ability, his promo ability, anything like that. But the fact, he was good for what he was. Actually, what he wasn't good enough for, but he was still that anyway.
I look at a lot of people through the scope of, if they were currently in WWE and we had a brand split, what would they be? And I look at Jeff Jarrett back in 1994. Jeff Jarrett would be a world champion on SmackDown. But he would be on SmackDown.
See, you looking at like his 94 stuff, like I always thought that his Attitude Era character was more of a standout, like could have been a world champion as opposed to his stupid suspenders look and country singer.
Oh, okay, yes, the look was very stupid. I hope he doesn't come out wearing something.
I hope he does.
Like, it's just at that time he struck me as a gimmick, whereas in the Attitude Era he looked like an actual wrestler that you could take seriously.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, stuff with I mean, the biggest thing that I would obviously say is slightly awkward about the Hall of Fame thing is the Kurt Angle situation.
No, I think they're good.
I mean, you'd think that, but obviously Kurt Angle's been out of that situation for a while. Jeff Jarrett was in and out of TNA towards like the end of Angle's time there. So if Jarrett is being brought back into the fold on a more permanent basis, there could be some instances for a bit of friction there. I just hope that obviously it won't blow up on the Hall of Fame stuff as well, but hopefully they don't make too much of a deal about that.
It'd be kind of funny if he's doing the induction kind of thing, and he's just like, I want to thank Vince McMahon, I want to thank Triple H, I want to thank Stephanie McMahon, I want to thank Kurt Angle's wife. I mean, my wife.
I mean, the fans would go on it.
For introducing me to my wife, which was his wife.
I think hopefully the fans don't jump over that, because there's a good possibility they would do.
Yeah, that'll be kind of interesting if they start chanting "You suck" if he says Karen.
Or start trying to slut at her or something like that.
You think they're gonna mention China?
No.
No, because that's the thing that really broke his ties with WWE anyway. The fact that he demanded a huge payoff to lose the championship to her. So
yeah, I think they're skipping that.
Yeah, they'll skip around anything that could have caused his just basically caused any irreparable damage between the two of them.
And that brings us to the final one here. We're going to wrap this up pretty soon. Goldberg will be inducted by Paul Heyman. And we've mentioned this before, so I don't want to talk about it for more than, a real quick mention. But really, Paul Heyman?
What a weird fucking thing, man.
I don't understand that at all.
I mean, the thing is, Goldberg is a big name, but he wasn't known for having too many friends behind the scenes and stuff like that.
I just think Bischoff. Bischoff makes the most sense.
He hates Bischoff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the issue, is the fact that he and Bischoff never got on. You can't really use anyone from his WCW time because he hated the last few years in WCW. So you really can't call it. Who's it going to be? Kevin Nash?
Well, he was good friends with Paige. He's good friends with Austin.
Yeah, I'd say someone like Paige or Austin. I mean, Austin's would be slightly confusing because obviously they didn't work together for too long. I think the thing is that the biggest thing that people were fresh in their minds about Goldberg is the stuff that he did with Brock Lesnar in the last year. So Paul Heyman makes the most sense really in that regard. It's not the perfect pick, but I think it works.
I don't think there's any discussion of whether or not Goldberg deserves to go into the Hall of Fame. That dude was it for WCW in a lot of different ways.
Few WCW names that was bigger and transcended the WWE brand.
Yeah.
He was the last good thing that WCW ever produced. And he's WCW born and bred. He's from the power plant. I know people talk about the fact that he wasn't a great wrestler. He was a really good wrestler for what he was supposed to be, which was somebody to just come in, kick someone's ass, beat him in 3 minutes, and then walk out. He had such an awesome presence, such an awesome entrance. He was different. He was WWE's equivalent to what WWF Stone Cold Steve Austin was.
Yeah, that's why everybody back in the day, I remember, we're hanging out in the recess playground, and we're all just like, man, if Austin and Goldberg could go fight each other, who would win, And then somebody like myself would be like, actually, Goldberg's a better fight for The Undertaker than Austin, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If WCW had gone all in on Goldberg and there wasn't all the stupid politics behind the scenes with your Hogan and Nashes and stuff like that, trying to desperately hold on to any power they still wish they had, then WCW would still be alive just on the strength of Goldberg. I think as a character and as like a merchandise mover, I'm not saying that WWE would have like kept level with WWE, or they probably would have started going out just because they were so inept creatively. But Goldberg would have kept them going. There would have been need for something like a TNA or something like that because he would have kept WCW going.
Between him and Sting and some of the other names, they would have been able to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Goldberg, Sting, Flair, Page, I think would be the Mount Rushmore of Monday Night War WCW.
That makes sense. Yeah. I don't know, maybe throw Hogan in there because of the NWO. But
I'm keeping the NWO separate for this one.
Yeah, the NWO. You got WCW Mount Rushmore and then the NWO Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, there you go. And then that's Hogan, Nash, Hall, and
Savage.
Vincent.
I'd go Bishop.
And Horace. So the very, very, very last thing I want to talk about here, just because we're pretty much out of time, Goldberg's potential future. Do you think he's done, or do you think that this makes him want to pop back up again?
I don't know. I won't go on about it, but Goldberg is one of the small names that I have as a huge surprise for Braun Strowman's partner.
Or the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal.
You've been saying that for like 6 months.
Yep. I think it's a possibility.
I don't think he's done, but it comes down to what he wants to do. Apparently he went through quite a torturous time trying to get back into ring shape, even though he wrestled for a couple of minutes almost. So he didn't wrestle as much as probably AJ Styles wrestles in a single match. But getting himself into that mindset and into this training up to what he wants to be for these matches, it will be completely down to whether he wants to go through that again. But I could see a lot of potential with people like Braun Strowman or Samoa Joe or some big names that could put on some decent matches with him.
All right, well, that is the 2018 class of the WWE Hall of Fame, everybody. We, of course, don't know some of that, a little bit of information that we were missing out on there, but the website will, I'll report and switch that around on the website when that stuff comes out. The Hall of Fame ceremony is going to have a live chat on the Mega Maniacs when that happens next Friday. And we'll be not having a podcast afterward because it's really going to be like, what did you think about this kind of a thing? It's really not anything.
With Dean Ambrose on the red carpet.
That's definitely take a drink when you do that. Follow the drinking game if you want to die for that. And real quick, just do these plugs here. Callum, anything you want to toss out for anybody to follow?
Well, you can just follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14, and then just check Smark Out Moment for all the content that's coming out for the WrestleMania week. It's going to be exciting.
Fucking much. Oh my god. Robert, anything on your end?
Ditto for me on follow Smark Out Moment, and follow me everywhere at Dude Felice.
And from my side of things, everybody, of course, as always, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel here and ring the bell for notifications to be aware of the next thing that we're going to be doing. There's going to be a lot happening next week. We are going to have not only the hot tags, but we're going to have a post-show for the tournament for the Mixed Match Challenge. Then we're going to get into our predictions for NXT TakeOver New Orleans and WrestleMania 34. And then, of course, at the end of those two, post-shows for both of those. And I got so much crap I got to do next week, so you're going to hear a very, very tired Tony, but you are not going to hear it if you don't subscribe and check it out. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SmarkOutMoment. Follow Fanboys Anonymous over on fanboysanonymous.com and all the other social media stuff there. And we will see you when we see you, everybody. Thanks for listening to this edition. Tell us what your thoughts are for all these Hall of Famers in the comments below. And we will see you when I already said that. This has been another Smark Out Moment, everybody. And we are being counted out.
Spend my days working hard on the go, but the hands on the clock keep spinning too slow. I can't wait to be alone with my baby tonight.